Okay, so I want to pick this up with Act 4, Scene 1 on page 21, no, 22, and kind of take a look at more Iago. In between here, Iago, this is in between. Uh, Othello asked Desdemona about the handkerchief. She didn't have a good answer. She tried to distract him by talking about Cassio, which she didn't know was the wrong way to distract him, but it's a really wrong way to distract him because he's like, oh shit, she's talking about Cassio all the time. But remember, because she wants Cassio to get his job back because Cassio's been asking her, "Can you help me with your husband?" So she won't give up, and it makes her look bad. And then Iago flips out at her. I'm sorry, Othello flips out at Desdemona, and Iago, in a big irony, tries to make her feel better. He's like, "Oh, I don't know why he's so upset. That's so strange, dude. You did that to him, you lunatic." Um, and then Iago pushes it even further because now he's discovered he can get Othello to commit murder. So he's just going to keep pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. So we come to Act 4, Scene 1. This is the scene in the movie, remember, where they're kind of in like a jail cell down below? It's like a dungeon, and Othello and Iago are down there, and Cassio joins them, and then Cassio gets in a fight with the prostitute Bianca. So this is that scene. Um, so they're in the middle of it begins in the middle of a conversation talking about kissing, and see, Iago just riles him up by describing shit, right? To be naked with her friend in bed an hour or more, not meaning any harm, because Othello wants proof. He still wants some kind of proof before he starts murdering people. So he's like, well, what do you want to see? Do you want to see her in bed with her friend? Naked and maybe he says maybe they're kissing, or maybe they're just naked in bed together and they're not actually having sex, and he's just fucking with him by bringing up all this upsetting stuff. He's putting images in his head. Naked in bed, Iago, and not mean harm. It's hypocrisy against the devil. um and he said, look, if I give my wife a handkerchief, why then 'tis hers, my lord, and being hers she may, I think, bestow it on any man. So he's like, maybe she's okay. Maybe it's okay if she gave Cassio that handkerchief. Again, he planted the handkerchief, but he's giving him all these. He's trying to make excuses for Desdemona, so he still seems like Othello's friend. Um, uh, but for the handkerchief, by heaven, I would most gladly have forgot it. Um, and he just can't stop thinking about it. Iago says, what if I said I had seen him do you wrong, or heard him say, as knaves be such abroad, who having by their own importunate suit of voluntary dotage of some mistress, convinced or supplied, cannot choose, but they must blab. Meaning maybe she talked about him. What would that be proof? Hath he said anything? Well, he hath, my lord, but you may be well assured no more than he'll unswear. So he says, well, wait a minute, what do you consider proof? You want to, like, watch them have sex? And Othello's like, whoa, don't talk to me about that. It's making me more crazy. And of course, that's exactly why I said it. And then he says, what if Cassio said things about her? Is that enough? Um, and Othello says, well, did he? But of course, Iago now can make up whatever he wants. Because he says, well, he said stuff. Um, uh, what if he said, um, um, faith that he did? I don't know what he did. What? Lie with her, on her, what you will. Lie with her, lie on her. We say lie on her when they belie her. Lie with her sounds. That's fulsome. Handkerchief, confessions, handkerchief. He's losing his mind right now. Because what Iago is doing is painting a picture. Iago keeps putting upsetting pictures in Othello's mind. He puts images in there. So he says, well, what if lie with her, lie on her? These are sexual descriptions, and it just Othello loses his mind. He loses his mind so much that he has an epileptic seizure, which is the power of Iago's mind to just destroy him with ideas. Um, and this is gibberish, right? I mean, you read this and you're confused, right? Zounds, that's fulsome, handkerchief, confessions, handkerchief. This is not a sentence. It doesn't make any sense. Othello is so upset now, he's just babbling. To confess and be hanged for his labor, first to be hanged and then to confess. I tremble at it. He can't really even think straight. He just goes crazy. Pish, noses, ears, lips. Is it possible? Confess, handkerchief. Oh, devil! Like, he cannot even compose. Othello is so destroyed now. Remember Othello from the beginning of the play, giving these big, beautiful speeches, right? He gets called before the governors, and they say, "Oh, Othello, did you steal? How did you win this man's daughter?" And he tells this beautiful speech about how he won her by telling her the story of his life and how wonderful that was. Um, it's fascinating to me. That Iago has now reduced him to just kind of saying random words and losing his mind. Um, and Iago says here, once Othello begins to go crazy, um, thus credulous fools are caught. Right? He makes fun of him. That he can kind of completely take over. And then Cassio shows up, and the two of them have a conversation. Um, uh, and they talk about how Othello, he's just having a fit and it's okay. But what Iago's going to do is he's going to get Cassio to talk about Bianca the prostitute, but they're going to kind of whisper her name and say everything else out loud. So when Othello hears, he'll believe that all this talk about Bianca the prostitute is actually about Desdemona. What's interesting to pay attention here is notice, if you remember the scene, Othello sort of, Iago tells Othello, listen, you stand over here. I'm going to get Cassio over here. I'm going to say this to him and get him to talk about Desdemona, really Bianca. And I'm going to get him to do this stuff. Now, earlier in these videos, I mentioned how Iago is a little bit like Shakespeare. And then he has a power for words. But please notice that Iago is a little like Shakespeare here because he's moving human beings around like a play. He actually, if the director in a play would tell you, stand here, walk over here, say this line, walk over there, say this line. What he does is he takes Othello and he puts him in the place of an audience. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. He says, Othello, you stay here and hide and watch. He wants Othello to watch this conversation with him and Cassio, but not actually be seen. That's sort of like a theater audience who watches actors, but the characters can't see. Right? When you're watching a play, the characters aren't like, "Hey, you audience." So the audience to a theater play watches unseen. And Iago wants Othello to do exactly what a stage audience does, and then Iago has dialogue, and he's going to say stuff and try to get Cassio to say what he wants to say. It's exactly what a director would do. Say your lines. He's going to get Cassio to say the lines. He's essentially stage managing the whole thing. So it's another big metaphor. Notice, by the way, this is not a metaphor that characters in the story would notice. Othello is not going to say, why are you treating me like the audience of a play? But it's for us to notice at home. It's a metaphor for us to see, wow, look at how Othello is just like us, because we're both watching these events unfold, and someone is creating a situation for us that's kind of fake. Right? When you watch a play, nobody really dies. Same thing here. Cassio isn't really talking about Desdemona. It just seems like he is. So it's a connection to think about another big metaphor, that Othello is like the audience, and Iago is like the director of a play or a director of a movie who controls what the audience sees, controls what the audience thinks, and controls actors and gets them to say certain things at certain times in the right tone of voice to have the effects he wants. Shakespeare wants to make you cry, and Iago wants to make Othello so insane that he murders his wife. So they had this whole conversation about, let me see what I want to kind of talk about. He literally instructs him, right? He says to him, oh, sorry, I didn't turn around. Okay, so he says, and he keeps telling him, like, that she may be okay. She may not really be cheating on him, but he tells him where to go. Stand you a while apart. Confine yourself but in a patient list. While you were here, overwhelmed with your grief, right, Cassio came hither. I shifted him away. And do but enclave yourself, right? Encave yourself, hide yourself over here. And mark, notice all the fleers and jimes and notable scorns. Notice all the jokes that Cassio is going to make about your wife. Dwell in every region of his face, for I will make him tell the tale anew. Where, how oft, how long ago, and when and half it is again to cope your wife, to fuck your wife. I say again, mark this gesture. Marry patience, right? Be patient and listen. So he's ready to do all this stuff, and then he tells the audience. Right? He says here, now I will question Cassio of Bianca, and make it sound like it's about Desdemona. And he says that he, when he hears of her, cannot restrain from the excess of laughter. I mean, Cassio loves to talk about Bianca. Othello shall go mad, and his unbookish jealousy must construe poor Cassio's smiles, gestures, and light behaviors quite in the wrong. Unbookish is an interesting word there. It means that Othello's really not that smart, and he's going to fall for this. All right, pick it up in the next video.